Okay, skill 2, activity 1, the objective. Few objectives here, but they're all related to the same thing. To learn how to count by fractional parts from 0 up to and past one whole. Okay. To build one whole with language starting at 0, immediately recognize when the numerator and denominator are the same non-zero number, you have one whole. For example, 4/4 or 6/6. And to learn how to write multiple wholes in the form of a fraction. Okay, so it seems like a lot, but once you see it, it's a real natural flow to how this goes. So you may be thinking to yourself right away, like right now, good. You may be thinking to yourself right now, didn't they already learn how to count by fractional parts? And so at the very beginning, at the very first activity, what we did is we were teaching them how to go through, and they were figuring out, okay, what is this? Well, how many did we have? We had 1, 2, 3, 4. We had 5, right? And what were those? That was 5/5. But we weren't counting by fractional parts. What we were doing is we were figuring out the numerator and denominator for that, but we weren't going, 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5, okay? And it may seem like these skills are really close, but you're gonna see why it's important that kids can count by and use language to build fractions and count by fractional parts, because it's a skill that they're gonna need when they get to improper fractions and mixed numbers and everything else, okay? So again, we'll take a look here. And we have, again, what they did is they went through and they went, okay, how many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4. And then what did I count? Each one of those, there's 4, so each one of those is 4. It's okay. So what we're going to focus in on now is we are going to be counting by fractional parts, okay? So when we count by fractional parts, first of all, what you'll want to do when we first start off is have your one whole, okay? And so if you use the materials provided in the program, you'll have one like that. And then all you're going to do is we're going to say, all right, you're going to use these fraction bars. All right, ready? So we know that we have 1/3. And now we have 2/3. And now we have 3/3. And when you get to 3/3, you need to make a big deal about it. Like when your numerator and denominator are the same number, what that means is you have one whole in a different way. So whether you cover it up like this and say, look, it's one whole, that one whole can exist in two ways. We can write it as the number 1, or we can write it as the number 3/3, okay? And again, you can go ahead and line them up. We're going to count by fifths now. So we have 1/5 and 2/5 and 3/5 and 4/5, and we have 5/5, okay? And again, make a really big deal about it. Oh, when your numerator and denominator match, we know that that's another way that we can write one whole, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna say, okay, we have 5/5, okay? So up to this point, we've started at 0, we've worked our way up. Now, we're not gonna teach them about what an improper fraction is at this point in time, or what the actual terminology of mixed number improper fraction. All we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, if we had 5/5, and if I put one more fifth there, right? If I put one more fifth, we had 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5. What would one more fifth be? And again, if we had one more fifth, it would be 6/5, okay? So now what we're gonna do is, and you remember, you don't have to use our models for this. You can use these models too, and you can go, if you have the plastic ones, they're much easier to use. But let's go ahead and take a look. Ready? 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5, and if we have one more fifth, we now have 6/5, right? 6/5. And then all you're gonna ask is say, look, if this is one whole, is 6/5 more than a whole, or is it less than a whole? And then they're going to establish, oh wow, you can actually count past it. Now 6/5 is not a big deal to them because they're just counting. And if we put another fifth on there, we would have 7/5, okay? So again, measuring it up and having them count, 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5. 5/5 is a big deal, right? Because that means you have one whole. Them understanding that 5/5 is a whole, or 3/3 or 8/8 is huge to understanding a lot of concepts that are in the future. So making sure that they understand how to do that, okay? All right, the next thing that you're going to do too when you teach them is remember sort of how the principles of how this apply with numerators and denominators. So you're gonna go ahead and say, because they have to learn not only how to write a whole as a fraction, how to write multiple wholes as a fraction. So again, let's take a look. What do we have here? Well, we have 1, 2. So we have 2. Now this will get tricky. Some of your kids may say, oh, it's 2 over 2 because I have 2 wholes. But remember, what did we count? For the denominator, what did we count? 1, 2, we counted 1 wholes. So it's 2 over 1. And that's how you write 2 as a fraction, all right? And again, you can go ahead. 1, 2, I have 3 right here. And again, what do I have? 1, 2, 3. And what did we count? Each of those is 1 whole, so I counted wholes. So having them count multiple wholes and write it as a fraction is going to be important too. Making sure that they understand when they're counting by fractional parts and they count up to 1 and they get to 5/5, emphasizing that and letting them count 1 or 2 parts past a whole, and just them recognizing, wow, this is more than a whole. And then when we get the improper fractions and a few more skills away, it's going to be much easier to introduce that because they're going to have familiarity with it just through counting by fractional parts.